Review podcast with me, Sade Camille. Welcome. So excited to have you on today's episode, and I'm really excited because I think that this is some chef's kiss information. Because you know about me, I'm all about the mindset, the when, the what, the how. Definitely always trying to level up and get better in life and really push my limits and to see where I can go, what I can do, all the things that I can achieve, which kind of really ties into what today's podcast is going to be about. It's like audio bangers adjacent. It's not technically audio bangers because I'm not giving you the full synopsis of the book or some key points, but I'm not even finished with the book, but I was listening to the book and I love this style of book first of all. Because it's not only someone reading the book, obviously audio bangers, audiobooks, but then we have the person reading the book interacting with the author in a audiobook slash podcast hybrid. When I tell you pivotal because we're reading about stuff and then he's expounding upon it even more in greater detail, and so it makes that information truly come alive. But one of the things that I really liked about this story in this book and in specific, um, that we're going to talk about is this cookie jar. And that's what today's episode is going to be about, the cookie jar. And so for me, in my journey, as of late, I've really been babying myself a little too much now. Some of you may know, some of you may not know. I did have brain surgery. I had cerebral spinal fluid leak, and I had brain surgery, and it really kind of made things full circle. Where I'm like, girl, you can't be doing the things that you was doing before. Like you just don't have that capacity for those things anymore. And you really need to shift. And with that, I babied myself so much that I become obsessed with comfort. And that is a place that you don't want to be because there's no growth in comfort. There's no growth in comfort. There is no growth in comfort. Okay, there's no growth there. And in order for us to shift to go where we need to go, we have to be able to be uncomfortable for a season and actually be comfortable with uncomfortable. That's the only time you can be comfortable. You got to be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable because that is life. You're never going to hit the next in your life without hitting a point of being uncomfortable. So the book that I am reading is called Can't Hurt Me, and it's by David Goggins. So I can give you like a little bit because I haven't fully finished the book. But David Goggins is from Indiana, and the book starts off with him, giving his origin story, which origin stories are very, very important because people take you for face value and think that you haven't struggled, think that you haven't been through anything, think that your life has been rainbow cakes and sunshine because you exude rainbow cakes and sunshine, and that's not always the case. So, origin stories definitely play a huge role in what forms the person that you see before you. So he's giving us his origin story, and he's telling us in this origin story about how, he was growing up. His father is very abusive. His mom was abused. He was abused. They would spend long hours all the time, at the roller rink that his dad owned, and it was just a very chaotic, troubled childhood. And he is remembering these things from a very young age of like 6 years old of the abuse and his mom being fearful to run away and not really having any skills and things like that. And just was talking about his upbringing. He's from the Midwest, he's from Indiana, and he was going over, like being a biracial person in Indiana, having people call him, the N word, and just being met with such adversity. But many of you may know him because he found himself in a place where he was like, okay, I want to join. Child, don't get me to flubbing up. He wanted to join the armed services, and I want to say it was the Marines. Okay, so he wanted to be a Marine, but he was heavily overweight. And so he found a way to drop 100 pounds in 3 months. Child, now I'm praying for God for this because I mean I don't want to drop 100 pounds because she's still thicker than the Snicker. She's not ashamed of that life. But I definitely want to be at a comfortable, healthy body fat percentage and whatnot. It's a little bit more deeper than that. But in order to be, you know, meet the physical requirement, like that's something that he had to do. And so that was his, basically using straight mathematics, because that's basically what it is, it's our calorie consumption. So if I consume this amount of calories, but I exert this amount of calories, then this is going to affect me and weight loss. And so he did it. And he goes through the story of like how he was battered, bruised, broken, and going through the training to become a Marine, getting hurt, having two shattered shins, duct taping his his ankle up, and still running 6 miles and doing all the training that was necessary. So I am not. I don't even want to say I'm halfway done with this book. So I'm not halfway done. I'm nowhere. I'm nowhere near that being done, but I was listening and it came to a point where in the story or in the book he's talking about, he finished the Marines, he went through Hell Week, the toughest times ever, and he was out in the world and now he needed something to bring him to that point of that same feeling of I gotta do it, I gotta do it. And that's a lot of what we miss. And I was actually having this conversation with a classmate a couple weeks ago, maybe even a month ago now. And I was telling him that I kind of lost that dog. And this is very much what David Goggins is talking about, but like that dog, that grit, that desire, that hunger, that need to accomplish this thing. 'Cause either it's got to get done or it's got to get done, and that's it. And I've had that, and I've had that where I've had that for spaces and places that I was a part of, but I can never translate that energy into something that was for myself. That was something that was for the betterment of my family, if that makes sense. Like people go 1,000% at their jobs, right? But when it comes to their marriage, they can only give 20%. You know what I'm saying? It's giving that. So being aware of that and knowing that awareness is the first step. So that's step number one. So I'm aware. So now I have the chance to pivot into change. And that's why I'm obsessed with mindset books and ideologies and mentalities of some athletes, people that defy odds in the capacity of what our brain can conceptualize, and what makes them tick because there's so many gems and jewels there. So at this point, he decided to run, I believe it was a 100-mile race, zero training, zero training, zero preparation. He said in the book that he had a lawn chair. His wife, I think he said he got some kicks from Walmart. He had a box of crackers and some Myoplex, and he said he was about to do this 100 miles with no train. He did the math. He said, if he just walk, he mapped it out, but mapping it out and doing it, completely different things. And so now he's at the space where he's doing this thing, and he is talking about how his body began to shut down because his body was not prepared for what he was trying to do. And so I'm going to go into a point in the story where he brings up cookie jars. And he's in the story. I mean, I don't wanna, like, ruin it for everybody because it's so good. I'm not even finished, it's so good. But in this particular point, and he says this because this is why I like the audio version, because you get a lot more than you would get from a paperback. I love paperback books, y'all, so don't come for me like, "Oh, she don't like books." I do love books in their raw form, but I like this because he was like, "This like, I went through Hell Week. I've done 60 marathons." He was like, "This was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life because it was hard on me, not only mentally, physically, spiritually, like every aspect. It was coming for him at all aspects." And he said, in the book, his body began to shut down because he wasn't fully planned for this. He was like, I didn't even have, proper things to hydrate me, proper things to nourish me for the amount of calories that I was exerting running this race. So he's like, I am, urinating blood. I am defecating on myself. And there's like literally nothing I can do about it. He's trying to hide it so he can continue to do the race. He's trying to hide it from his wife, who I believe has some capacity or knowledge in the medical field. I'm not 100% sure. But he's trying to hide it from his wife because he's just like, I'm going to attempt this thing, no matter what. And I'm at the 50-mile mark. So he's got 50 more miles to do, and he's at this point. And so he's like, I don't even know if I'm going to make it. I don't even know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to try. And that's where he's at in this moment. So he's giving it the college try. He's trying, and then he is like literally feeling all the things. He's like, my feet are bleeding, my toenails are hanging off. I'm just, urinating blood, feces, everything is like happening to me. I'm so exhausted. And he said, in order for me to complete this 100 miles, because he does say in the story that he was counting, he was like cheering himself on from this cookie jar. He said with every mile, he took a cookie out the cookie jar. And we're going to talk about this cookie jar because I think that it's amazing, but I have to give you this part of the story. So he's like, I'm taking a cookie out of the cookie jar for every mile that I'm doing. And he said, man, I lost count at 100, so I went around one more time just to make sure I did 100. He said I did 101 miles with no training, without proper nourishment. I did not have water. Like, he did none of the things um, to ensure a successful because he was successful, but to ensure that, his body was together because he finished the race and he still was peeing um, urine or urinating blood. He still was defecating on himself. He still was extremely fatigued to the point where like his wife had to like, roll him up in the car and like he collapsed when he got home and they were freaking out. He didn't want to go to the hospital because that's how men's are sometimes. Sometimes, child, they be like, mm. But that's where he's at. But he said that he was taking a cookie from the cookie jar from every mile. So the cookie jar is an analogy, obviously, and it's talking about a point in his life where he was a kid and his mom. He said one thing his mama did was she kept some cookies in the house. And he's like, I remember that, it used to be wafers in there, Oreos, Milano cookies, chocolate chip cookie chips. Like he's just going over all the cookies. And he's like, I'm going through something hard right now, but I've been through harder things. And so I really wanted to talk about that. And even though this is in podcast form, right? I'm sharing this information with you guys. This information, this is recorded, documented history for myself also. And I definitely do challenge you guys to go through your cookie jar and to see what things have I accomplished in my life that are way harder than anything that I'm going through right now. So currently, I have a lot of things on my plate. Not urinating and defecating on myself, going through uh, physical restraint, mental restraint in that form of fashion, but I'm going through it in a form and fashion. Okay. And it really brought something to my attention of, he said, I I went through Hell Week where they tried to break me. That's a cookie out of the cookie jar. You know, I've had, people call me the N-word and I prevailed against that. Like that's a cookie out of the cookie jar. He's like, I passed the I think it's a written test that they have to take also to get into the Marines. He was like, I did that and I could barely read at the third grade level in high school. So he's pulling these things out of the cookie jar. And I think that that is such a powerful, powerful, powerful thing because it's in the Bible, that we leave monuments to the truth and the testaments of God. There's things that we go through that we have survived 100% of those things. 100% of those things. I can go back as recent as, the surgery. So, you know, I I say this because I used to be like, oh, I'm gonna have a couple more kids, and then after I have my couple more kids, child, I'm about to get this mommy makeover. I'm about to get, you know, nipped and snipped and snatched and all that. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get that body back that I ain't seen since 2006, baby. But going in and having to have like I've had C-sections. I guess that's another cookie out of the cookie jar. Like I've had surgery before. Um wasn't elective surgeries, right? There were necessity like, my babies needed to come out surgeries, but this was different. Because this is dealing with, you know, the modem, baby. Like this is my brain. I don't have any this is my brain. I don't grow more of that, unfortunately. It doesn't shed like our skin and then we just grow more or it doesn't shed like hair and we just grow more. Like it's my brain. So you know, seeing the signs and the symptoms of that thing and knowing that, hey, I can take a cookie from the cookie jar and saying that I survived brain surgery, um, where, they did have to amputate a portion of my brain. They swear up and down that it's okay, that it doesn't have any real function or necessity, but if God gave it, why not, baby? But anyways, they said that it didn't have, a necessity, for me that I would be good. And going through that, I remember being in some of the worst pain that I've ever been in because at that time, I was working out, which working out was always like a part of my life, but I really was like in the gym, working out, really trying to get like physically fit, working on aspects. I had a trainer and they kind of gave me some points of, that I needed to work on, and that's what I was doing. And I've always been strong. Um, if you see me, I'm very like small in stature, but not small. But I'm like, a beautiful young woman, but I like to lift heavy. I like to like there's things that I can just do. And so going through that, it was very difficult because I was extremely weak. Um, I could not eat. I barely drank water. Like I didn't have a taste for anything. So like now I'm like losing weight. I'm losing muscle mass. I'm losing weight. Not a whole lot to be like, but definitely was not eating. Definitely was not eating. I was in excruciating pain. Um, because I was in a position where I had an overproduction of brain fluid to compensate for the fact that there was a crack in my skull and it was leaking out of my nose. So my body is producing more of this. So they did the surgery, but they wanted to make sure that the pressure was alleviated in that area. They wanted to make sure that, like, okay, yes, I don't want to say duct taped it, but we duct taped it, we sealed it up, and we don't want the weight and the pressure to cause it to rupture because you know, this first surgery that I got was like level 1 of mending this situation. There's level 2, there's level 3. Okay, so level 2 would have been like, I want to say that they would actually have to, because they went through my nose, so they came from, they sealed the crack from underneath. Okay, so this is my fingers, they're spread open, that's the crack, we sealed it from underneath. If that did not work, they were going to have to come inside, scoop it out, and seal it from inside. Okay? That's the second case, worst case scenario. Then the third worst case scenario would be, okay, they tried 1 and 2, and then now I would have to walk around with a contraction hooked up to my spine that is basically like a colostomy bag, but for my spine, for my spinal fluid, in order for it to be, leaked out to alleviate the pressure in my skull. So these are all my worst case scenarios, and I knew this stuff going in. But they did have to use something in my spine to kind of help make sure that the pressure was down and that there wasn't so much fluid in there. And that was the most painful, the most, like, I was in like the fetal position, like and to know me is to know that, okay, yes, I am emotional, but there's very few things that I cry about. Like, if something makes me cry, there's like a strong emotional attachment to it. A strong emotional attachment where it's like I gave of myself, and that's where the strong emotional attachment lies. So I gave a little bit of myself to something. So like relationships, you give a little bit of yourself. You let someone peek behind the veil and see a side of you that they wouldn't have else ever seen unless they got close to you. So it's stuff like that. It's losing people that you didn't expect to lose, that you expected for them to be around for a long time. So it's things like that that like really I'm like, oh, I'm crying now, but just thinking about the mini scenarios. Um so it's things like that, but, like, it's very rare for me to cry from pain. Like, I'll be like, "Oh, dang, that hurts. Oh," but never I'm in, like, the gripping the rails of this hospital bed, like, "Please stop, like, please stop, like, please give me something to go to sleep, like, I just wanna go to sleep, do it while I'm asleep," and, like, I'm telling them that it's, like, painful. They did not care. Child. They did not care, okay, in the neuro unit, baby, they was not caring about anything that I had to say, but going through that, reminding myself of that situation, of that pain, because that's like that is a pain I can't even surmise in words, that type of pain, and that's essentially what David is saying for him, like, everything that was going on because you have so many pain points happening through his body. And he says that he was like, I went through Hell Week, and Hell Week was like, I think he said like 100 and some odd hours. And he was like, this was just going to be 24 hours. Like, this is not that bad. But he was like, doing Hell Week, that was a use of all the, that was a use of certain muscle groups at certain times. He said, doing this race, this was the use of a specific muscle group the whole time. And that's where, like, it really was taking a toll on him. And so that got me to thinking of, that point in time, like that was, man, so difficult, so hard. And I knew that like the surgery itself wasn't going to take me out. Like I knew that I was not going to die from the surgery. I did know that the journey of recovery was going to be difficult. And I'm still going through the journey of recovery to this day. Like I have to take medication from now till they come up with something. I mean, but every day from now on in to stay alive, to keep the pressure regulated in my head so it doesn't happen again. And not only that, I mean, and the anatomical functionality of a nose, my nose is not the same anymore. Like it is not. I joke with my doctor all the time and be like, I got one nostril, because baby, I have one nostril. Okay, like thank God that like when I tell people, they're like, "Oh my God, where's the scars?" And I'm like, luckily, like I still look like myself. Besides, like I don't have my nose rings in anymore, which I can get them re-pierced. I should probably do that soon, but I don't have my nose rings anymore. But that was a part of it. Um, that was something that I can pull from the cookie jar of my life and saying, "Hey, I've been through that." Another cookie jar would be just like the loss of a parent. Um, it's and I was having this conversation with my boyfriend because I told him like I understand grief, but I don't understand grief um from the point of like a life being taken by the hands of another. I've only ever really experienced it by sickness, by like the playing out of circumstances happening. And man, it's just, growing up, um, my mom was like she was our mom. Like she was the one that made sure we had food, shelter, clothing, all of that. And when you are a woman, your blueprint of being a woman comes from your mom. Um, and you as you progress, you learn and you grow and you figure out, okay, there's certain things like this I would like to tweak, but there's certain things like that makes sense. Um, but for the most part, like this is, your blueprint for that. So losing a parent, losing a parent to, cancer is just it was very hard, very difficult. It was seeing someone look a certain way, um, that they looked like their whole life, you know, like your whole life in any regard, like knowing that your parent looked like this their whole life, and sorry y'all. um ugh. If you guys are watching the podcast, we're just ripping lashes off. It's fine. Um, but to experience something like that and have them being taken by a force that is very uncontrollable, like you don't have any control of that whatsoever. It is very difficult. It's very difficult. It's very trying. Um, to see them once in their glory and to see them not look like themselves at all. Um, that would be a cookie from my cookie jar. Like, you have lost the person that you thought that your life would be over if you ever lost them. Your life is not over. That's a cookie from the cookie jar. The whole point of the cookie from the cookie jar was experiences that molded him, that shaped him, that he experienced that should have broken him, but he didn't. And he's like, man, that cookie that I had, like that cookie jar, like that was something in that moment that I thought this was the most difficult thing that I ever had to do, that I've ever been through, like I've ever experienced. And he's like, you know, I can take that thing and use it as motivation to get through. So, another cookie would be being a teen mom. Okay. So I had my oldest daughter when I was 18. And then I had my son when I was about 20. And having a point where I was just like scrounging up change just to like buy them something to eat. Like scrounging up change, like, not knowing how I was going to provide for them, like that being such an unknown factor, to sitting in a nice place. It's not my home, I don't own it, but that is coming. But having a space, a place that they can come to that's theirs, um, that, they have food to eat, they have clothes on their backs, they have shoes on their feet. Um, I don't have that level of anxiety or worry like I once did. Like, but I remember the anxiety and the worry that I had. And if I can say God brought me from being 21 years old with a stank attitude, child. Like, y'all think my attitude is bad now. Like, my attitude is more like sassy. I don't give a what versus I don't give a what, like, what that girl said, catch me outside, how about that? Like, like that's when I was on, like, real childish, real immature stuff, like real goofy stuff. And that Sade to the Sade now is completely different. Honestly, I wish there was a way for, you know, 17-year-old Sade to meet 35-year-old Sade, and then for, you know, 6-year-old Sade to meet 17-year-old Sade and 35-year-old Sade, and what those conversations will be like, because ultimately our character is shaped by very pivotal moments in our life, affirmations of moments that generate this character that we have. And so I really want to challenge you all to look in your cookie jar, pull from the place where you can't believe how you were able to get through that thing. I can't believe that I am walking after brain surgery, because I did have a walker for a little bit by myself. Like, brain surgery, like, he talking about in his book, like, peeing and pooping on himself. Like, I couldn't go to the bathroom without assistance. Like I as a grown person, um, having to let someone else bathe me, let someone else wipe my bottom. It is a humbling moment. That is something that I survived. That pain that I felt, the gym is painful. That stuff really hurts. I mean, I do get a lot of pain in like my back core muscles. They are very like sensitive and tender, but I try to remind myself like, girl, like you've been through way worse. You've been through way worse, way worse. I don't want to share too much of it because I think that that would be great for an origin story episode because I've I've always had it where people see me for who I am, just who I am, the shell of who I am. And I'm never a person to like take a person for face value or judging a book by its cover, because people will surprise you. My boyfriend always has this way of saying, like people underestimate you, but you shouldn't be underestimated. And I'm like, it's true, and before it used to make me mad, and now I graciously underestimate me. I know nothing. I am dumb, and la 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 la. Whole time I'm plotting, but um, you'll come through instances and situations in your life like that, where you know you have experienced a lot of things, and you were able to move forward through that. You had moments where like, you know, you were either assaulted or almost assaulted. Um, I was almost assaulted. I know what that feels like. And it almost is 99.9% someone you know. It's highly unlikely that is a stranger who does these things. And like how I felt, like just such in shock and everything like that, and like literally having to fight my way out of a situation like that. And so knowing that that was painful to go through, that was traumatic, but I can pull from that place of I overcame that to go to my next. So this episode, The Cookie Jar, inspired by David Goggins' book Can't Hurt Me. I really, really recommend this book for you guys. We'll definitely give you the overview of it for audio bangers once I complete it, because I know he's gonna have way more thing. Like I'm halfway through it. I'm halfway through it. It's pretty long, so I know that he's got a lot more things to talk about. But that cookie jar scenario is something that really can can be life changing for us if we take some time and think about some of those dark places, some of those hard places that we've been at, and look at ourselves from the other side and being like, I'm unstoppable. Nothing can stop me. You know, some of the worst things that could happen to me happened to me. Some of the worst things that have happened to me. Honestly, I told my kids I should do a episode on my podcast about parent trauma, being traumatized as being a parent, because that's a real thing, child. But anyways, I say, there's a lot of things that I've been through that I've came, through to the other side, and I have this strength that, you know, it surpasses physical strength. It is mental strength. And I'm challenged in different areas of mental strength because you can have mental strength in, you know, relationships as it relates to friendships, or relationships as it relates to like your children, but you might not have the mental strength when it comes to relationships as far as like your partner, or relationships where it comes to authority, or relationships where it comes to parents or parental figures. So there's always levels to it. I've had it where, I thought that, okay, I exceeded in this area, good to go. Like I'm good to go. Like, yes. And that's not necessarily the case. The case is, yeah, you passed level one. You got level 57 coming up. Okay. And it's always levels to it. So I hope that you really got some gems from this podcast episode today. Like I always say, we've survived 100% of the things that we have been through that were sent to break us. And we are here and we're on the other side. And so I hope you take some time to remind yourself of what's in your cookie jar. What are some of those things that you can pull from that you survived it? You came on the other side, and that's going to help motivate you through.